David Knight. David Knight is going to be speaking on the new theory and the new weapon. If you would, give it up for David Knight.
That works. No, sure. Yeah, try that one. There you go. Thank you.
All right, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Are we learning a lot? Well, prepare to have your mind blown a little bit more. Again, my colleagues Casey Quinlan and Brian Edwards, we're part of Project JFK CSI Dallas in Kansas City. My name is David Knight, researcher, author, videographer. I get asked the question, so who do you think killed JFK? My answer is always the same. It doesn't matter what I think, it only matters what you think. I can give you the roadmap, but it's up to you to strap in and drive. And I hope after today you will do just that.
Wow, you make history come alive.
Thanks, Ted. Making history come alive. A little bit about my background. I've been a researcher since 1989, 30 years. I've read over 400 books, read thousands of documents, viewed almost every film available, interviewed hundreds of eyewitnesses and people involved in and around the research community. I've returned to the scene of the crime over 20 times. I've made 11 documentaries released on DVD, Blu-ray, flash drive, and digital copies. Collaborator of other researchers and authors' works, and I've been a part of the national conference here in Dallas across town for the last 10 years. Researcher, lecturer, and I'm writing a book soon to be published, but we just had a new book come out that I've been a part of, and if you want to see the unrushed presentations that you're seeing today, they are in the book, so you get the book and the DVD, 2.5 hours of myself, Brian Edwards, and Casey Quinlan. These are 35, shameless plug, had to throw it in there. So our topic today, a new theory on the throat wound of President Kennedy, possible weapons, ammunition, location, and why. So where did my info come from? Books, videos, testimony, internet, documents, and my direct interviews. So let us begin. We will discuss the weapons that were known for a fact that were in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. We will discuss the weapons in question that could have been in Dealey Plaza, and we will discuss what I theorize is the type of weapon that could have been the cause of JFK's throat wound. Well, let's look at the evidence. We clearly see JFK's been hit in the throat. Governor Connolly shows no signs of being shot in frame 230 of the Zapruder film. We look at the Alkins photograph. James Williams Alkins took his two famous photographs on November the 22nd, 63 while working on assignment for the AP. He was supposed to work in the office that day, but instead went to Dealey Plaza with his own camera and captured these two photos known as Alkins 6 and Alkins 7. Here's a blow-up. We already see JFK has been hit in the throat. He's grabbing for his throat right now. There was a hole and a crack in the windshield. You could stick a number 2 pencil through it. Eyewitnesses say they saw the hole in the windshield and that the size of the hole would fit a number 2 pencil. They also said it was a hole made from the outside going to the inside. Dr. Vela Glanges, quote, "But it was very clear it was a through-and-through bullet hole through the windshield of the car from the front to the back. No way there's even any cracks associated with that bullet hole. It seems like a high-velocity bullet that had penetrated from the front to the back in the glass pane." George Whitaker Sr., "It was a good clean bullet hole through the screen from the front right that had a clean round hole in the front and fragmentation coming out the back." These are statements from the men who killed Kennedy. Dallas Motorcycle Patrolman Stavis Ellis stated, "There was a hole in the left front windshield. It was a hole. You could put a pencil through it. You could take a regular standard writing pencil and stick it right through there." Dallas Motorcycle Patrolman H.R. Freeman, "I was right beside it. I could have touched it. It was a bullet hole. You could tell what it was." Secret Service Agent Charles Taylor Jr., "In addition, of particular note was a small hole just left of center of the windshield from which it appeared to be bullet fragments were removed." These are statements from Best Evidence of David Lifton's book. Eyewitnesses and ear witnesses have spoken and testified that what they thought they had heard was not gunshots. They thought they heard firecrackers going off. But what kind of a gun or rifle sounds like a firecracker? I will answer this question with my theory later on. Firecracker. Sounded like a firecracker. This list of eyewitnesses, count them, 50, ear witnesses heard what they thought to be a firecracker. All right, so what did the doctors at Parkland remember seeing concerning the wound in the throat of President Kennedy? And what did the doctors see of the wound at Bethesda Naval Hospital? At Parkland, they saw a perfect round hole, entry wound. At Bethesda, they saw a 3-inch gash, exit wound. In a comparison, we have Parkland on the left and the Warren Commission drawing on the right. Well, let's talk about the back wound. Parkland doctors didn't see this wound, but during the autopsy, the wound in the back was found and probed. Doctors probed the wound and stated that they could feel the end of the wound with their finger, so not a very deep wound, surely not a through-and-through wound. The Warren Commission would have us believe that Oswald shot from an elevated 6th floor, shooting at a downward angle, shot JFK, and the wound turned upright in his body and exited his throat. How did they explain this theory? With the magic bullet. HSCA JFK Exhibit F294. On the left, we have CE 399, the magic bullet. To the right is CE 572, cotton wadding. To the right of that, CE 853, a goat carcass breaking one bone. And CE 856 is the wrist bone of a human cadaver. They couldn't even make their experiments come back to show the magic bullet. You know what I call this? It's bullshit. Statements from doctors at Parkland Hospital. You're going to see 2 short, quick videos, and then you're going to hear from me about Dr. Robert McClellan. You're going to hear about the video from Dr. Malcolm Perry, and then Dr. Charles Crenshaw will be following that.
At Parkland, Dr. Malcolm Perry, attending surgeon, tried desperately to keep the president alive.
Hold that thought. Technical difficulties. I'm going to grab the other computer. Go ahead. It's great being an audiovisual technician. high as I can get it. Hit the main switch and slide it up. Should be the far right one. No, over on the far right. Nope. That's right. Yeah.
Your sound output is going out through the has nothing to do with this, not with anything.
No, it's not. So it's HDMI instead of line out?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Second one.
There we go. Okay, Dr. Rob McClellan. Let's see. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Rob McClellan for the last 10 years. I've seen him in lecture, and I've recorded him in lecture that I've spoken with him at great length. He's been very adamant since 1963 about what he witnessed inside Trauma Room 1 at Parkland Hospital, Dallas, Texas. He states that he saw the back of the president's head blasted out. I asked him back in 2014 about the throat wound, and what he told me is that it appeared to be an entry wound. When I asked him about the size of the wound, he had brought up what I read, what other doctors had said about it being between 3 and 5 millimeters. I asked him what he observed. Dr. McClellan states that he arrived after the tracheotomy had been performed, but that what he was recalling, what he and his fellow doctors discussed about the size, he told me that he felt was a little larger than 5 millimeters, but definitely smaller than 6.5, which happened to be the size of the ammunition used in a 6.5 Mannlicher Carcano rifle. I pressed further, how much bigger? And he told me just a little bigger than 5, but smaller than 6. So remember, we're looking for a round of ammunition that's between 3 and 6 millimeters, and the weapon that could have been used. Well, let's look at types of ammunition. Note, the 17HR round was not available in 1963. It wasn't produced until 2002. So I have circled the 22 Hornet and the 22 Long Rifle. So let's look at the handguns, rifles, and shotguns we see pictured in photographs taken on November the 22nd, 63 in Dealey Plaza. Dallas Police Department. They carry Remington 870 shotguns. We see pictures here of shotguns carried all around Dealey Plaza. Shotgun ammo doesn't explain the hole in the President Kennedy's throat. We see rifles being carried into and out of the TSBD. Remington Model 8. In the photographs just shown, we see Captain Fritz and Detective Boyd carrying the Remington Model 8 rifles in and out of the TSBD. It was chambered in .25, .30, .32, .35, and .300 Savage, all with a range of 6.5 millimeters to 9.1 millimeters. Author and researcher Brian Edwards sums up the description of these rifles better than anyone that I know. Thanks, Brian. Captain Fritz and Detective Boyd both carried Remington automatic rifles, same model and caliber used by Clyde Barrow. This rifle is a superior weapon if you're hunting bears and giant boars. It's ludicrous to carry that into a building. If they would have had to fire it inside, it would go through everyone and hit the brick wall. I never did understand why they would carry rifles in there anyway. Patrol was already in there searching. So 6.54, 7.8, 8.2, and 9.1 is too big for the throat wound, so let's rule them out. How about handguns? We see pictured here Sergeant Gerald Jerry Hill's 38 Colt Police Positive, Captain Will Fritz's 38 Colt Army Special, Detective Paul Bentley's 38 Smith & Wesson's Model 15 and Model 10 snub nose. They had a 38 special round, 9.1 millimeters. Dallas Police Motorcycle Officer Bobby Hargis carried a 45 ACP, which measures 11.5 millimeters. And let us not forget about all the other handguns carried by all the other officers. So 9.1, 11.5 millimeters, too big for the throat wound, so we're going to rule those out. How about the Sheriff's Department? Well, Sheriff Bill Decker was riding in the lead car in the motorcade. Now, I don't think he turned around and shot at President Kennedy. Even if he did, he carried a 45 ACP with 11.5 millimeters. Again, it's too big for the throat wound, so we're going to rule it out. Let's talk about the Secret Service. Secret Service agent George Hickey had an AR-15 rifle raised up after the president had been shot. He carried a Colt Armalite AR-15 Model 01 or 601 with a 20-round magazine. It had a .222 Remington, which is 5.7 millimeters. Well, it fits a throat wound, but the AR-15 wasn't raised up until after the throat shot and the car, gun, and agent was behind JFK the whole time in the motorcade. We're going to rule it out. Key piece of information that several researchers have either not known or did not fully research is the .223 Remington round that's been spoken and written about was not even produced until 1964. No one had it, including the government. So possibly the round that would have been loaded in the AR-15 that Secret Service agent George Hickey had in his weapon that day was a .222 Remington. But just to be thorough, I've included the ballistics of both cartridges of ammo here in this presentation. How about Lee Harvey Oswald? This backyard photograph that was made famous on Life magazine, which also basically condemned Oswald in the public's view. In the Klein Sporting Goods ad, the 6.5 Italian carbine sold for less than $20. It's a hell of a bargain. 6.5 millimeter Mountcrook Arcano rifle was taken into custody. Well, it's 6.80, not 6.5, it's actually 6.80 millimeters. 6.80 millimeters is too big for the throat wound, so we're going to rule it out. How about Oswald's revolver, 38 caliber Smith & Wesson, chamber for 9.1. Well, it's too big for the throat wound, plus Oswald had to pick it up from his boarding house after he left the TSBD, so we're going to rule it out. How about Jack Ruby? November 24th, 1963, Ruby shoots Oswald. Jack Ruby's revolver was a 38 caliber Colt Cobra with a 9.1 millimeter round. Well, it's too big for the throat wound. Newly released documents show that Ruby was in Dealey Plaza at the corner of the Postal Annex building across from the TSBD during the assassination, according to informant Bob Vanderslice. Okay, now that's all cleared up. Let's move on. Let us discuss other weapons we have reports of either being around Dealey Plaza or reported to be seen around or that has been written about in the research documents and community. I'm going to show you a video of a report of two different rifles found on the 6th floor of the TSBD. Time between the announcements was 55 minutes. The reported rifle goes from a 30-30 to a British 303. This is Tom Whalen, an NBC affiliate.
A short time later, Dallas sheriff's officers took a young man into custody. It's believed that they also took a rifle at the same time, described as a 30-30 rifle, which was supposedly found near the scene, although this has not been confirmed.
We return to station WBAP-TV in Fort Worth and newsman Tom Whalen.
Here's an additional report on what you heard NBC correspondent Bob Abernathy describe a few minutes ago, the building in which the sniper had hidden. It's the Texas School Depository at the intersection of Elm and Houston Street in Dallas. Dallas Crime Laboratory Lieutenant J.C. Day went to the building a short time after the shooting took place, and he walked out with a British 303 rifle. The rifle has a telescopic sight. Now, the rifle was found on the 6th floor of the building near a corner window. Also, police searching that area found 3 empty 303 cartridge cases, also scraps of chicken, as if a person could have been there for some time. There were boxes of books, textbooks, and other school materials stacked up all around on 3 sides of the sniper's nest, as if he had been there for some time. There was a gun rest made of papers near the open window that commanded the site from which the sniper, by which the presidential motorcade passed when the president and Governor Connally was shot. As we said before, the sniper's nest has been found, and police have recovered a British .303 rifle with a telescopic sight. This is Tom Whalen reporting from Texas for NBC from WBAP-TV.
Well, thanks, Tom. I guess we had fake news back in 1963. Now, these are images of a .30-30 rifle. These are not the exact weapons that were there as reported on because we don't have pictures of a .30-30 found in this particular type of weapon. Was never entered into any evidence. The .30-30 rifle that Tom Whalen spoke about, 7.8 millimeters for a diameter size of the bullet. It's too big for the throat wound. Let's rule it out. These are images of a British .303 rifle. Again, these are not the exact weapons. British .303, 7.92 millimeters. It's too big for the throat wound, so we're going to rule it out. Extra tidbit of information. Buell Wesley Frazier owned a .303 British Enfield rifle. After reports of the .303 on TV, DPD went looking for Mr. Frazier. The rifle was not the only reason he was wanted for questioning, also his connection to Lee Harvey Oswald, and he too worked at the depository. In this supplementary offense report dated 11/25/63, written by Rose and Stovall, it basically states in here, I'm not going to read it all, but they went looking for him, couldn't find him. He was with his stepfather, Dave Williams, at Parkland Hospital. Or I'm sorry, they checked it at Parkland Hospital. He wasn't there. They found him at, let's see, Irving Professional Center. They searched his car, found nothing of importance. They then took him to his address. They found a .303 caliber rifle and a box of ammunition. He took a polygraph later that night, passed with negative results. Well, in a filmed interview at the JFK Lancer Conference just a couple years ago, Buell Wesley Frazier stated that when he went in there, they handed a paper to him, Captain Fritz did, and said, "Here, you need to sign this." He read it, looked at it, said, "I'm not signing that." Well, he drew back, thought he was going to hit him, Captain Fritz. He did get out of there without being, an accomplice or the shooter. So was they setting up Buell Wesley Frazier in case they didn't get Oswald? It's very possible. How about two guns in the TSBD prior to November the 22nd? In Roy Truely's later testimony to the Warren Commission, 7H 381-382, Mr. Ball asked Mr. Truely, "Do you recall any time you saw any guns in the TSBD building?" "I did. November 20th, 1963. They belonged to Warren Castor. A rifle to go deer hunting with and a .22 rifle." How about we talk about the mysterious .38 in a brown paper bag? There was a .38 snub-nose revolver found in a brown paper bag or lunch sack. .38 snub-nose revolver, serial number 893265. There have been reports of it being found in front of the TSBD, grassy knoll on the corner of Ross and Lamar Street. I guess this gun had legs and started walking. There was reports of a blonde-haired woman dropping it. It was found by Willie Flatt and turned into Dallas Robbery Homicide Office by DPD Patrolman Jay Raz. The FBI started an investigation on 11/30/63. Where did this investigation lead to? Where is the revolver now? It is clouded in mystery. We don't have a definitive answer. Well, I've included in the Google Maps here of right where the Sixth Floor Museum is, or the Texas School Book Depository building is, right here. It was actually found over here and was turned in by Jay Raz. It's a 6-minute walk. Let's talk about the 7.65 German Mauser. Well, the ammunition size of that is 7.94 millimeters. A brief history about this rifle. Jim Garrison on Trail of the Assassins, page 113 to 115, states, Officer Seymour Weitzman, part of the Dallas Police search team, later described the discovery of the rifle on the afternoon of November the 22nd. He stated it had been so well hidden under boxes of books that the officer stumbled over it many times before they actually found it. Officer Weitzman, who had an engineering degree and also operated a sporting goods store, was a recognized authority on weapons. Consequently, Dallas Homicide Chief Will Fritz, who was on the scene, asked him the make of the rifle. Weitzman identified it as a 7.65 Mauser, a highly accurate German-made weapon. Deputy Sheriff Roger Craig was also there and later recalled the word Mauser inscribed in the metal of the gun. And Deputy Sheriff Eugene Boone executed a sworn affidavit in which he described the rifle as a Mauser. As late as midnight, November 22nd, Dallas District Attorney Henry Wade told the media that the weapon found was a Mauser. Well, 7.94 is too big for the throat wound. We're going to rule it out. Let's talk about James Files. Real name was James Sutton, 21 years old at the time, was a shooter on the grassy knoll. He bit the bullet case and set it on the fence. He said this was his trademark. He fired one shot, one round into JFK's head. He worked with Charles Nicoletti and Johnny Rosselli. Met up with Lee Harvey Oswald and spent time with him in Dallas prior to the assassination. What they did, we don't know. There's more to this story and claims that I will not go into here, but if you wish, you can look him up on the internet and judge for yourself. The Remington XP100 is chambered for a .221 Remington fireball, 5.7 millimeters. This gun did not have a magazine. It was a one-shot weapon. You pulled the bolt action back, you dropped one shell in it, you closed it, you shot. You had to do that every time. Well, so 5.7 millimeter fits a throat wound, but James File said he only shot Kennedy in the head, not in the throat. So I'm going to rule it out. Before we finally come to my theory on what happened, and I can slow down and take a breath for a second, we have a shit ton of rifles out there that are being, claimed to have been spotted. 303, 30-30s, 7.65 Mauser, 6.5 Carcano. Well, let's talk about a weapon that could have been used to do JFK's throat wound, and possibly, even after me and Brian's been doing research, it's possible to even have it be a headshot. A headshot. Art imitating life. Let's see if Hollywood in one of its timeless films could point to a weapon that could have been used. Bond, James Bond, Ian Fleming's From Russia with Love, starring Sean Connery. Where did he get those wonderful toys?
Ask the equipment officer to come in, please. Q Branch has put together a smart-looking piece of luggage for us. We're issuing this to all 00 personnel.
An ordinary black leather case with 20 rounds of ammunition here and here. Now, if you take the top off, you'll find the ammunition inside. On the side here, flat throwing knife. Press that button there, and out she comes. Inside the case, you'll find an AR-7 folding sniper's rifle, .25 caliber, with an infrared telescopic sight.
Now, why do I show you this film clip? Why? Because this rifle, and I'm going to show you here put together in just a second, you could fit it in a suit or in a briefcase. You could put it in a coat pocket. That morning it was raining. People were walking around with overcoats on. It could have fit in a pocket. Got it there, put it together. Nobody would have known they even carried it into Dealey Plaza. It's not a 7.65 or a 6.5 Carcano that can't be broken down. Well, it can, but then you have to reassemble it. Note in the movie, Q states the AR-7 is a .25 caliber. They did get this wrong. It was actually chambered for a .22 caliber. It was released October 10th and 11th of '63 in London, United Kingdom. It wasn't released in the United States until April 8th, 1964. Well, wouldn't this have been great if it was actually used and the shooter was sitting there watching the movie going, that looks familiar.
You'd better leave it to me.
I'm already too much in your debt.
How can a friend be in debt? Here.
Infrared lens. She has a lovely mouth, that Anita.
Yes, I see what you mean.
So the reason for the use in the movie was an assassination. Let's talk about the AR-5 and the AR-7. Armalite AR-5 was produced and put into use in 1956 by the United States Air Force. It was released for civilian use in 1959. It weighed 2.5 pounds. The length was 28 inches. Total, that's the length of the butt of the gun. Barrel length 14 inches, so a total length of 42 inches. It was a bolt action. It had a 5-round capacity magazine, also known as the Ronson or the Zippo magazine clip. We've all seen a Zippo, not very big. It was chambered for a .22 Hornet. It's 2.3 times the muzzle velocity and 7 times the energy of the common .22 long rifle we go plinking cans with or squirrel hunting with. Size comparison. You have the .22 Hornet on the right, the ballistic tip, and you have your common .22 long rifle right over here on the left. It was designed in the 1920s, produced in 1930 to present, manufactured Winchester, used by the Air Force during World War II. Just so happens that this ammunition says, under no circumstances is the ammunition to be used for offensive or defensive measures against enemy personnel. This ammunition is provided for use with your emergency survival rifle for the killing of game for food under emergency survival conditions only. Part of the Hague Convention Act stated a 22 Hornet rifle round is not supposed to be used against enemy personnel. Why? A 22 Hornet round actually goes in your body just like a 22 long rifle. Ask anybody out there that knows anything about guns, what's the most dangerous weapon or dangerous round of ammunition to be shot with? It's not your 9mm, it's not your 45s. What it is a 22. It goes in your body, it starts ricocheting, hitting bones, tendons, soft tissue. Sometimes it goes out, sometimes it doesn't. People walk around until they die with rounds of ammunition in them, whether it's the whole bullet or just fragments. Specifications, it's 5.7 millimeters. It fits a throat wound. Let's rule it in. The Armalite AR-7, produced and in use in 1959 to the present, weighed 2.49 pounds. Total length 28 inches, 5-round capacity magazine. Here's your 22 long rifle ammunition round. Specifications, 5.7 millimeters. It fits a throat wound, so we're going to rule it in. So we're looking at AR-5, AR-7. They're very similar. The AR-5 is a bolt action rifle. AR-7 is a semi-automatic rifle. Today, the Henry AR-7 is being still made. It's made from the design of the Armalite AR-7. It weighs 3.5 pounds now. Total length is actually 34 inches, not 28. It has an 8-round capacity in the magazine. When you look at this weapon completely broke down, you have your action, your 2 clips, and your barrel. All fits in the stock. Put your butt cap on, and guess what? It even floats and it's waterproof. I'm going to show you a video. Because of Texas law, and we want to make sure we don't go against the law, I can't bring the weapon in and put it together. But we're going to show you a video of it where I actually put it together and you can see it. Now, you saw in the video a while ago with James Bond, Sean Connery putting the rifle together. Well, for demonstration purposes, we actually have the AR-7 Henry Survival rifle here, and I'm going to put this together for you. You pull off the butt cap. Everything is inside the stock. You have 2 magazines. You have your barrel. You have your action. You take the action, you slide it in. There's a turn screw. Tighten the turn screw up. Take your barrel, insert it into your action. It's got a spin collar lock. Take your magazine, insert magazine. This is your rifle. It's extremely light. I'm holding this with just 2 fingers and my thumb to steady it. Do you think this rifle could have been used? Anybody could have walked into Dealey Plaza with this underneath their coat, rain jacket, briefcase, whatever. Pull it out, assemble it just as fast and easy as I did, if not quicker, and take their shot. Thanks, me. Okay, the Henry AR-7. Here we actually see it with a scope on it. You don't actually have to have the scope on it. It has iron sights. The AR-5 and the AR-7 both could have been used. I lean toward the AR-5 rifle is a rifle I lean towards because the 22 Hornet is a more powerful round. Okay, so why? It's very little recoil. It's easy to conceal. Extremely accurate to 100 meters. For such a small caliber, it can cause a lot of damage. It's quiet. Sounds like a firecracker. Firecracker. Sound comparisons between the AR-5, the AR-7, and a firecracker is 0.06 decibels. That's not a whole lot. If the rifle was used, we have eyewitnesses, ear witnesses state the fact that they heard firecrackers going off. Could that have been what they actually heard? .5 Carcano does not sound like a firecracker. Now let's look at the possible shooting locations and trajectories for a moment. First off, it's a frontal shot. This is an aerial photo. The red rectangle represents where the presidential limo was at the time of the shot to President Kennedy's throat. We see the red rectangle up here on Elm Street. This is JFK's viewpoint. If he was actually sitting in his car, looking in this direction, this is what he saw. Notice what we don't see in the picture? The grassy knoll. The north grassy knoll. Well, how about South Knoll shooter? Sherry Feaster, author of Enemy of the Truth, stated it was a South Knoll shooter. The throat shot trajectory was in a 15-degree cone. If the shot came from the south grassy knoll, this would explain the hole in the windshield and the shot to JFK's throat. Almost. Sniper's viewpoint from the south knoll. Well, where do I put a shooter at? Look at the bridge. We saw this in Brian's presentation a while ago. Photograph taken by Tom Dillard. We obviously see something up there in the photograph. Now, I've got to ask the questions. What's this little white dot right here? You guys see the white dot in the middle? Well, let me show you what that is. If you're holding a rifle, you have your hand like this. It's white. You've got your barrel sticking through. What we see right there, you got the head and you got the hand. It's holding the rifle. Tactical shooting position, like Brian demonstrated a while ago. In the Frank Cancelleri photo taken just right after the assassination, it's gone. He got up and he walked away. Well, let's take a look from the shooter's perspective. This is standing on the bridge. I just lucked out and had a car coming down Elm Street. This is standing on top looking over the rail. This is me crouched down with my camera looking right down Elm Street. It's a perfect lineup. This is a more perfect lineup than the South Knoll. This is a more perfect lineup than the North Knoll. This is sure as hell a lot better perspective than shooting from the 6th floor of the Texas School Depository Building. What if he had a scope? You think it's very hard to take a shot with a scope? Could have had it on there. Extra tidbits to ponder. Here's an extra tidbit of information for you to ponder. Does anybody know who had a government-issued AR-5 issued to him and did not return it when his service ended? Anybody? Bueller? Huh? No. General Curtis LeMay. Guess what? General Curtis LeMay actually is the one that procured the Armalite AR-5 for the United States military, for the Air Force. When he left office, he took his AR-5 with him. Now, I don't know about anybody that's been in the military. I mean, I do know people that's been in the military, and I asked them, hey, can you take a grenade home? How about a tank? You got one of those in your backyard by chance? Hell no. When it's government-issued property, you turn it back in when you leave. He kept his. This is actually the AR-5 22 Hornet rifle right here on the screen. It has his nameplate. Right here, General Curtis LeMay. AR-5 belonged to. The first AR-5 had a single locking lug on the bolt, did not pass the testing, so they came out with the AR-5 version 2. The U.S. Air Force has been using the survival rifle, and Armalite designed a replacement in a 22 Hornet. AR-5 disassembled and was stored in his buttstock. The buttstock would float. In the Garrison magazine, I want to thank S.T. Patrick here. I want to talk about for just a second, and everybody that has not picked up a Garrison magazine, shameless plug, get issue 1. This is in there. In Springfield, Illinois, on October 19th, the presidential motorcade had passed a point in a downtown area and was due to return within about 30 minutes. A few minutes after the motorcade passed, an employee of the Illinois Department of Public Safety saw a rifle barrel with a telescopic sight protruding from a second-story window. The local police took into custody and delivered to special agents of the Secret Service Tom William Stone, age 20, and his brother-in-law, William Francis Cisco, age 16. A 22 caliber semi-automatic rifle and a full box of 22 long rifle ammunition was seized. Stone and Cisco admitted pointing the gun out the window on the parade route. However, they claimed they had merely been testing the power of the telescopic sight to determine if it would be worthwhile to remove it in order to get a better look at the president when the motorcade returned. As there was no evidence to the contrary and neither of the men had any previous record, prosecution was declined. This is bullshit. Anybody that would be pointing a rifle at the president to say, hey, I just want to see if I get a better view, there's binoculars, there's scopes, there's not the one on a rifle. I tell you about this because this came out in a declassified document. That's why we got to keep going back to the information that we have. Look at declassified documents. Find out what's in there. This was in there. Key piece of information. When this was given to the JFK Presidential Library, the archivist said this is the first time she'd ever seen a declassified document that looked like this in the collection. I spoke to the Illinois State Register reporter. I spoke to the Washington Post reporter. They said they had to protect their sources. They couldn't even tell me the document number. Well, guess what? It's in St. Patrick's magazine. I contacted NARA, could not get it. There's a problem with trying to get information about documents. Nobody wants you to know what the hell is going on. That's why we have to take it upon ourselves to find this information. Why we have publications like Garrison. Remember, this is just a theory. Thank you. If anybody wants to find out more information, go to projectjfk.com. We got 5 minutes? Great. Okay, well, see, I get done. That's 172 slides done in what? Short time. I talk fast and you can't even look at your phone unless you're going to miss something. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, David.
Hi, Ed.
I just briefly, you show the Grassino South figure on the bridge. In 1972, Emery Brown and I found, I'll be as diplomatic as possible, a human-like figure with a rifle-like object on the grassy knoll south. It corresponds with a shot to a scar that's on the Elm Street sidewalk, which was patched twice. I brought that to the attention of the House Select Committee on Assassinations twice. I showed them to Dave Powers, John Kennedy's best friend. His eyes nearly came out of his head. I even sent him to That's Incredible, who didn't do anything about it. I brought it to the attention of the Assassination Records Review Board. They weren't interested. Boston News that night in 1995, when I testified before the Assassination Records Review Board, briefly showed it there. But it's a human being, and it certainly looks like a rifle over there. Of course, there could be more than one.
Sure.
I don't have the toys that Brian and Casey and David have. I'm being dragged into this century. But I did do a presentation years ago when I was young and pretty, and I do have a limited number of DVDs of that presentation that has that gumming on it. So those of you who are really interested in it, see me and we'll work something out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I try to go out and we talk to students, high school, college, you know, the younger generation. How I go and talk to elementary schools. I have 2 kids in elementary and my daughter's in high school. We've got to get the younger generation involved in this. Well, how do we get those people involved? We get them involved with the technology of today. The Tom Dillard photo has been sitting there for 56 years in the public view. Well, I went to sleep one night, woke up like Oliver Stone's film when Costner wakes up Sissy Spacek. I had seen something. I knew I had seen it. I'm like, well, I jumped up, got on the computer, 3 o'clock in the morning, pissed off my soon-to-be ex-wife. And that's probably why she's becoming my ex-wife. But got out there to see what I had seen. Well, the photograph is staring me right in the face. So went down to Dallas, Texas this year. Went to the scene. Actually, it was 2 years ago. Went to the scene. Battery dead? They just want me to shut up. Okay, let's go with this. So anyway, went down there to the scene, looked at what I'd seen in the Dillard photo, and I said, okay, this makes plausible sense. Well, we have to use the technology that we have today, not just in dreams, but we have to look at the technology we have today to go back and reinvestigate this case from like a starting point of day one. We have to put our detective caps on. We have to show up for things like this. Talk, reach across the aisle of, you know, it may be an anti-conspiracy theorist. It may be a person that says, no, there's definitely conspiracy. Well, if we don't join up together, the government sure as hell ain't going to do this for us. They want us to believe the official record of the Warren Commission. So I appreciate everybody that came out today and comes out to the conference this week and spending the hour that, you know, you're not going to be able to get back after hearing me. So is there any other questions out there? All right. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of the conference.